And we have one more update for the best of Redditor update post where the original OP's husband thinks she baby trapped him. This is an update from February 13th, which was 9 days later. Thank you to everyone for all the messages and kind pieces of advice. I have received so many requests for an update, so I thought I would quickly post and let you all know how I am doing. Overall, everything has settled down a little bit. In good news, I had a scan with the doctor. My mother-in-law attended with me, and the baby is happy and healthy. I finally found out the gender. I am having a little girl. I am over the moon. My mother-in-law was a gem, and she was so touched that I had included her in the scan. She is very excited to be a granny. On that note, my mother-in-law organized a family lunch a couple of days after the scan. I was a little reluctant, but I knew that she had good intentions and wouldn't do anything to make matters worse. When I arrived, my husband and brother-in-law were there, along with my father-in-law, male 70, and mother-in-law. It was quite awkward until my mother-in-law asked if anyone had anything to say. My brother-in-law spoke first and apologized for his awful text, saying that he was swept up in the moment and wanted to support his brother. I explained how hurtful it had been to receive such a nasty and vindictive message, and that he knew as well as anyone that my husband and I had been trying for almost a year. He hung his head and mumbled something. That was pretty much the last I heard out of him for the afternoon. Next, my mother-in-law looked quite pointedly at my husband, but he actively avoided anyone's eyes. Eventually, she spoke up and announced that my husband would no longer be welcome to stay in their house. She said that she was ashamed to have her son behave the way that he has, and that she would prefer to make space for her granddaughter rather than have some lowlife hanging around. Shit. I love this mother-in-law. My husband had opened up his mouth to say something earlier, but his eyes lit up when she said granddaughter. My husband had always wanted a girl, and he was suddenly in tears saying that he was so pleased to hear the gender. My husband was suddenly wanting to touch my belly and asked if he could come home and paint the nursery. I told him in no uncertain terms that he was not welcome, and that he had destroyed any trust I had in him. I told him that if I took him back, I would be worried that he would disappear at any kind of big news, and that I couldn't have someone by my side who balked at the first chance. He asked me if I was telling him it was over, and I point blank told him that I had engaged a lawyer. My husband was kind of frantic, but I felt so calm, like someone had put a blanket over me in the situation. Normally I'm a big crier, but I felt so removed from everything. My husband said that this was not fair. He had shown a little bit of panic, and suddenly I am throwing away our life and denying him his daughter. My father-in-law reminded him that this is the same baby he felt trapped by no more than 2 weeks ago. My husband said it was a mistake and that he was stressed, but my mother-in-law asked him how he thought I felt. She asked him to imagine being so vulnerable and giving up your body to grow a family, and suddenly the one person you trust is accusing you of terrible things. He said it was a mistake and projected his fears onto me. I told my husband I felt so broken when he left because I had all these dreams of a beautiful family which came crashing down in an instant. My husband said that he wanted those things with me, and he wanted our baby girl, but that he let the panic overwhelm him. I told him that wasn't a good enough excuse for what he put me through, and that he certainly didn't seem panicked when his mom had to drag him to my door to apologize. He didn't have much of an answer other than to say he was ready now and wanted our girl. In all of this, and all of the times he told me he wanted me and our baby, he never once apologized properly. After a very, very long discussion, the lunch wrapped up and my mother-in-law stood by what she had said about my husband not being welcome. He asked again if he could come home with me, and I told him that it was my house. I owned the house before we were married, and that it was going to be a safe space for me. That is to say, he is not welcome. As far as I know, he is staying at some hotel. Finally, he was served divorce papers at work on Friday. My bestie's husband drafted them earlier, but I wanted to wait until I had thought it all through. I received a few missed calls and crying voicemails asking if I was really throwing away our family, but I did not respond. He even took a crying selfie sitting in his car, which my bestie laughed at quite a bit. My mother-in-law called me when she heard and told me that I am making the right decision. I'm flabbergasted by this mother-in-law at every turn. She said she never wanted my marriage to end this way or for her son to be so callous, but she said she is here for my baby and I, and that we will always be family. She even tried to apologize on my husband's behalf, but I told her that was not necessary. At the end of the day, his actions are his to own. My best friend has been around all weekend, and we went baby clothes shopping for a little bit of sunshine in all of this. She has been such a rock, and her husband has helped so much with the process. I don't know what will happen next, but I feel much calmer, and I think I am making the right decision. I will update again if anything major or exciting happens, but for now, I just want to get through all of this and hopefully come out with a beautiful baby girl. Wish us luck. Going through with the divorce surprised me. It did surprise me. Once that trust was broken, and once I think she saw his true colors, and it wasn't even once he found out she was pregnant, because she had been pregnant. It's once he had a buddy that got baby trapped, even though he consciously decided to want this baby and to try for this baby. It's like his friend went through something and was freaking out, and he had like sympathy freak out. Can't do that, dude. Okay, look at it this way. The amount of shit that he put his pregnant wife through, who is already vulnerable, who is already over-processing all feelings, who is already supporting another human life inside of her, the amount of shit that he put her through, punishment fits the crime. The crime was worthy of the punishment that she laid down for this. I'm just surprised that she actually went through with it, because in most cases here, you would have a mom who was, afraid of doing it alone. And for that reason alone, probably would have taken it back to try to make it work, or for guilt, or for, if no other reason than because she wanted the baby to have her parents together and try to keep at least somewhat of a classic symbolic family together for the baby. And so many people stay together for that very reason and that reason alone. But she saw that when the going gets tough, he gets gone and just geeks out. Life is hard, and life with kids is hard, and you're going to hit so many obstacles in life that you have to know that your partner is there to stand by you for all of it. And she's right to not know that. She's right to not have the faith in him that he's going to be there for everything. He proved to her I'm calling it a minor freak out, because he had no reason to freak out. This wasn't even a real issue. It was something he knowingly put himself into, and then he had a buddy go through something and he had like sympathy pains and freaked out because of that. Like, what's going to happen when something real happens? What is he going to do? He's going to run. But his mother-in-law, she's like the godfather of mother-in-laws here. She's like a true patriarch. She's Abuela from Encanto. She's like, no nonsense, you're gonna do what I say. And the way that she pulled the strings to make the boys apologize, and then still called her son basically trash and said she was embarrassed of him and wouldn't let him come back to her house, which I'm sure was her move to try to force him to reconcile and get back with his wife so she could stay there. But whenever she held her ground, whenever OP held her ground, mother-in-law agreed with her. So many surprises at every twist and turn here. This is a movie script. Mother-in-law, I am a fan. I'd like to shake this woman's hand. Say thank you for your service. Can you please teach a class to other mother-in-laws? Wowza.